We've been reporting on the potential for catastrophic flooding from Tropical Storm Debbie as it makes its way north. Some parts of Georgia and the Carolinas are predicted to get up to 2 feet of rain, which of course could mean big trouble far inland. In tonight's Eye on America, Mark Strassman has a cautionary tale of the threat that communities are facing now and in the future.
Hurricane Matthew sucker-punched Lumberton, North Carolina.
We got you, sir. Stand them up, bro.
80 miles inland, no one saw 20 inches of rain coming.
Lumberton right now is going through a tough time.
The Lumber River crested 11 feet above flood stage. Flooding topped the levee and swamped the city in 2016.
I'm 6'3" and the waters were up to my chest.
We first met Jimmy Hunt 8 years ago, rescuing Matthew's flood victims.
It's pretty horrific what we've seen out here.
The fire chief remembers saving roughly 50 people.
Thank you, we're safe.
Most of them elderly.
10 to 15 minutes from the time the water came over till the water flooded their homes.
And once it flooded their homes, all bets were off.
All bets were off. It was just survival at that time.
2 years later, Hurricane Florence landed the 1-2 combo.
It really boggles the mind, right, that this same thing can happen again. Houses were underwater.
Brianna Goodwin, a community organizer here, remembers 24 inches of rain.
It was almost this feeling of being shell-shocked. Like, I see the water, I see the flooding, but is this real?
Lumberton learned the hard way twice. Today's hurricanes can target communities far from the coast. Gavin Smith, a professor at North Carolina State, studies the impact of climate change on natural disasters.
Not only the storms are becoming more intense, slower moving and water laden, but the populations are changing, and the people that are moving into these hazardous areas may not fully understand the impact.
Warmer oceans fuel storms. Our warmer atmosphere holds more moisture, and storms now routinely drop 10 to 15% more rain. Storms like Matthew,
You slept on the roof.
Slip on the roof.
which I covered back in 2016.
Finding shelters for people gets harder when buildings have no power and no water.
8 years later, there could be a lot more Lumbertons going forward. In roughly 30 years, future storms could cause flood damage to more than 19 million properties, coastal and inland. And only about 1/4 of them would have flood insurance.
We literally lost everything.
Hurricane flooding ruined Sheila Moore's Lumberton house twice. She had no flood insurance. Church groups rebuilt her home both times.
You redid the whole house after Matthew, and along comes Florence.
Another one.
And what was that like?
That was devastating, too.
Even years later, Lumberton's only partially recovered, physically, psychologically.
You don't feel safe. You know that there's something that can destroy your home, and that's just not a very easy feeling to have.
It's a sea change. Today's hurricanes menace more than coastlines. For Eye on America, Mark Strassman in Lumberton, North Carolina.
Next week will mark 1 year since the horrific wildfires on the Hawaiian island of Maui, and a devastating new report details the struggles that are still part of daily life there. It finds residents are far more worried than hopeful. At least 70% of survivors have struggled to pay for groceries or find affordable housing. In tonight's Eye on America, CBS's Jonathan Vigliotti returns to Maui, where not all the damage is visible.
The wildfire that tore through Lahaina claimed 101 lives. Nearly 1 year later, the physical scars remain. What you don't see,
it changed all of us,
is the terrifying mental toll.
The animosity, the energy, the negative energy, it's there.
Kia Kaina's downward spiral began when his father's body was discovered in the ruins.
He was found right outside the Maui Outlet Mall, right on Front Street, in his truck. And he had his little dog with him.
This is why remaining Lahaina strong can be so elusive.
I've had things sneak up on me and hit me a little differently. For a guy who was always positive about life, it put me in a little bit of a scary area where I would feel myself falling into the trap of suicidal thoughts.
Our CBS News team first documented this deadly mass evacuation days after the disaster. This was last August.
You could see the desperation in how these cars are lined up. We're talking dozens as far as you can see. There was so much panic as the fire hit.
Today, the cars are gone, but much of historic Front Street remains frozen in time.
It's surreal to be back, and it's surreal that so much of it does look the same.
It does. I think it's just a daily reminder of the trauma.
John Oliver is the public health program manager for Hawaii's Department of Health, making sure that people like Lynette Chun are getting access to mental health services.
The fire devastated me, and my mind was fractured.
How would you describe the crisis?
It's unprecedented. What we're seeing is grief. There's uncertainty, there's anxiety, there's depression. So we have whole families that are impacted.
When Lahaina burned, it was not just a community that was lost. This was Hawaii's ancient capital, its rich history, the way of life passed down from generations. 12,000 people lived in Lahaina before the fire. 1 in 10 have already sought help for mental health. Oliver estimates that number could soon reach 1 in 3. While there are signs of progress, including some businesses that were undamaged now reopening, much of downtown is still a landscape marked by trauma.
The people of Lahaina must come back. I think that is what everybody wants. And so Lahaina is not Lahaina without the people.
I have a little baby that was my savior.
Kia Kaina finally found the help he needed. It was staring him right in the eye.
She was the reason why I think I held firm, I held tight, and I'm still here.
Out of the fury that ripped so much of Lahaina apart, strong bonds are what's keeping this community together. For Eye in America, I'm Jonathan Vigliotti in Lahaina.
This year's tornado season is on track to be the third busiest ever. In addition to the $28 billion in damage and more than 40 people killed so far this year by severe weather, there's a devastating emotional toll when a community is destroyed. And as CBS's Dave Malkoff reports in tonight's Eye on America, the rebuild unfolds after the attention fades.
You think we can do it?
Yes.
This is what Bartlesville, Oklahoma has looked like for the past 2.5 months since a powerful tornado ripped through here.
Our family didn't get hurt, but it's kind of sad to know that other families did get hurt also. They got hurt really bad.
And 8-year-old River Garrett had to grow up quick.
I was in tears, because I didn't expect this much damage.
Your life is a little bit different now than it was before.
It doesn't even feel like the same place, and I say it to myself, that I can't make this about me.
All the news crews are now long gone. River and his grandmother, Jimmy Blake, and the rest of the folks in Bartlesville are trying to put what they can back together.
This was part of the wall in the office building.
Oh, yeah.
The tornado did this to their home, powerful enough to blow a family photo with River's grandmother in it, 21 miles away to Danny Lemon's cow pastures.
So this is it?
Yep. There's a bunch of plywood and insulation laying around. I told my wife, I said, I know who these people are.
So far this year, there have been more than 1,000 reports of tornadoes in this nation. Meteorologists rate these tornadoes on a scale that goes from 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The one that hit here was near the top of that scale, winds up to 200 miles an hour.
Yes, this is where we build instruments and we put them onto vehicles so we can go out in the field and study storms.
Harold Brooks studies severe storms for the National Weather Service.
I think when people see these tornadoes, they think that at some point the buildings are going to get just reconstructed.
There are small towns that have been almost destroyed completely by tornadoes that essentially never rebuild because it's just hard to recover when there's no infrastructure left.
That was our meat processing plant over there. It's gone.
Johnny Kelly is the mayor of Barnsdall, Oklahoma. That tornado in May hit the heart of his community the hardest. 2 people died.
There's 83 homes that are gone. I don't know if there's enough adjectives in the vocabulary to describe this deal.
It seems like there's a short period of time when the eyes of the nation are on your city, but after that, there's still a big need here.
No one's here, and we're left here to deal with what's left. It's an emotional roller coaster for people.
A lot of people came in here and cleaned up, but it's not even half finished.
Do you have one wish for the future?
It's gonna take a while to get used to, but I hope this all gets cleaned up and you have a new house.
You want this part to be over like that?
Yeah, to like the future, so I don't have to think about it anymore.
You need a time machine.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
It took 120 years to build this community. It will take some time to rebuild. For Eye on America, Dave Malkoff in Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
I'm just really happy that you can tell me and help me understand what a tornado is like. You know, it not only does it hurt some people, but it also kind of brings the community together, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It was devastating because we had a fort, and you see all this. This is a lot. Like a lot of people came in here and cleaned up, but it's not even half finished. Other people, our family didn't get hurt. Good, that's good to know, but it's kind of sad to know that other families did get hurt also. They get hurt really bad.
Your life is a little bit different now than it was before.
It doesn't even feel like the same place. Like, it was crazy. I was in tears, like, because I didn't expect this much damage.
It's just so random the way tornadoes hit places.
Yeah, like one house is damaged like ours, and then the other house over there, barely damaged. They said it was 2 miles away, so maybe the tip of it hit our house. I'm just happy. Well, there's nothing really to be happy about because the house, but it just...
You can be happy.
Yeah, well, a little bit.
There are things to be happy that you still have your Mimi.
Yeah, and I'm just happy to be that everybody's safe.
Is that hard, not having your room that you used to know?
Yeah, one of my robot toys things survived, but my mom said, and I said it to myself, that I can't make this about me.
But it is about you a little bit because you survived an EF4 tornado. And your family loves you, and you're here to tell this story.
Yeah, a lot of people said that they're happy that I'm still alive and that I can tell the story about people. I'm happy I can, though, because just to tell everybody how it was like and stuff, how the past was.
Were you able to go to your last day of school, or how has it changed?
Well, my last day of school was after the tornado, too, like a couple days after. Nobody knew in my class about the tornado. I was like, huh? Like, the teacher was like, oh, hello, and kind of mad that I didn't finish my homework. I was like, did you see what happened?
That is a good excuse. You know, I've heard some bad, I didn't do my homework excuses, but that's a pretty good one. Do you have one wish for the future?
Well, I wish that, like, all this is, like, gone and we have a new house that we can just live in. We need to get used, it's gonna take a while to get used to, but I hope this all gets cleaned up and you have a new house.
You want this part to be over like that?
Yeah.
You just want to get to the point where you have a new house?
Yeah, to, like, the future, so I don't have to think about it anymore.
You need a time machine.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Well, thank you, River, for talking to us.
You're welcome.
Thank you for telling your story.
So far this year, nearly 42,000 acres have burned in California wildfires, with last week's Coral Fire the biggest at 14,000 acres. And that puts 2018's Camp Fire into perspective at more than 10 times the size of the Coral Fire. It was also the state's deadliest. Nearly 6 years later, victims of the Camp Fire are still putting their lives back together, whether they chose to rebuild or start over somewhere else. Here's CBS's Jonathan Vigliotti from Paradise, California, with tonight's Eye on America.
95% of Paradise surrendered to flame in the 2018 Camp Fire. The once lush landscape covered in pine trees stripped bare. But from the ashes, a new breed of American pioneer was born.
Hi, oh my God. It's so good to see you.
Kylie Warble and her daughter Ellie were one of the first families to return.
A lot of people don't want to come back here. I had to stay here.
We first met the Warbles back in 2019, 6 months after the firestorm destroyed everything. They barely escaped with their lives.
Why are you crying?
Because it's so sad.
What's sad?
We're talking about everything that happened to us.
Between then and now, how has life for both of you changed?
Even though we lost everything in the fire, it's nice to have something new.
You heal every single day. It's nice to get back in our hometown because then it's like you get a fresh start on life.
And thousands of people have come back for a fresh start. In fact, Paradise was the fastest growing city in California for the past 4 years.
Is it a crazy idea to move back to a community that has been decimated by wildfire?
You know, it's not a crazy idea, and people who do decide to rebuild in a place like Paradise, they're often even safer than they were before the fire because that place has already been burned.
Jennifer Gray Thompson is founder of After the Fire, a nonprofit that helps people decide if they should rebuild.
Well, people do live in the woods now because it's naturally occurring affordable housing often. So when we tell people don't live in the woods anymore, I say, let's actually help the people now who are not fire affected to actually remain, in place.
Today, fire threatens nearly 40% of all homes here in California. Well-intentioned firefighters were first trained to put out wildfires beginning in the early 1900s to protect a growing population. But all of that dead vegetation left behind, worsened by drought, led to a fuel source that, if sparked, can now be explosive.
In Paradise, efforts are focused on protecting against future fires. All power lines will be buried underground, and all residents must also remove vegetation too close to their homes. Federal grants are offered to homeowners who use fire-resistant materials to build their homes.
Do you feel like the new Paradise is more resilient if there was a wildfire nearby?
Yes, I do. The likelihood of seeing another wildfire in Paradise, it already devastated our whole community.
Not everyone agrees enough to return. While Paradise has seen record growth, the current population is only a third of what it was before the fire.
Paradise is a microcosm of just broader issues that our nation's going to have to grapple with more.
Researcher Ryan Miller is tracking our nation's growing climate migration and the conflict it's causing.
I'm hoping with some of the work we understand from Paradise, we can get ahead of some of those issues and prevent those disasters from happening later down the road.
But for Miller, this issue isn't just academic, it's deeply personal.
This was before we even got back to the house.
For Eye on America, I'm Jonathan Vigliotti in Paradise, California.
The Camp Fire in 2018 was the deadliest in California's history. 85 people died and entire communities were destroyed. In part 2 of our visit to Paradise, CBS's Jonathan Vigliotti introduces us to people who chose not to rebuild and tracks the relocations of former residents who now find themselves confronting the threat of calamity posed by climate change. Here's tonight's Eye on America.
Oh, look at that, Mom. Look at that, look at that. Images like this show how extreme weather ravages main streets across America. In the last 5 years, at least 5 towns in 4 states have been nearly erased from the map. All of them after Paradise, California fell.
So at first I thought we were just gonna, evacuate maybe for a day or two and then come back home.
Justin Miller's childhood home in Paradise was destroyed. He's one of the many who chose not to return, now making his home in nearby Oroville.
Was there ever a thought in your mind of staying in Paradise, of returning?
At first, we were thinking, after the lot was cleared off, we could rebuild there, but, then we realized the town would take a while to rebuild, so it would just be easier to move to someplace like here in Orville.
Just last year, extreme weather forced 2.5 million Americans from their homes. And new research finds nearly half of all American homes are threatened by climate change.
Paradise was that place in the 90s for my family where they could afford their own small house.
Justin's older brother, Ryan, a PhD candidate in geography, is now studying this climate migration.
This is research that is deeply personal for you.
Yeah. Why were we in a situation where the affordable place was also the place that had this huge hazard?
Ryan and his team used postal records to track where people moved.
We think this covers about 2/3 of all the households in Paradise.
What he found in many cases, a move didn't solve the problem. It put people back in harm's way.
I'm seeing a lot of households moved into areas that are also threatened by other kinds of disasters.
Well,
here in Florida, you have hurricanes, Tennessee, Kentucky, you have tornadoes. What does that say to you?
Maybe we're in a situation where increasingly people are finding that in their search for affordable housing, they sort of have to live in an area that's exposed to one of these climate-driven hazards. We're going to see more potential paradises happening where we have these communities exposed to this threat that the community might not be prepared to face.
All right.
Paradise residents Kylie and Ellie Warble largely picked up the pieces on their own, including removing dead trees and vegetation from their property as they applied for and waited to receive federal aid.
Has the meaning of home changed for you?
Yes, a lot.
Home for me was kind of like a place we live in, but home will always be wherever my mom is.
5 years on, Paradise families have scattered, the fabric of this small town frayed.
In Jesus' name, amen.
But don't tell that to the Warbles, pioneers of a new American community they hope is resilient to climate-fueled storms. For Eye on America, I'm Jonathan Vigliotti, Paradise, California.